All right, challenge science update video. All right, parents, it'd be greatly appreciated if you watch this entire video, because when I make these videos, I want to try to keep you guys informed of what's going on in the class, and also too, just some things I see and things I learned through the years. Me as a teacher, as a parent, because we all want what's best for your child, and so with these videos, I'm going to try to provide you just an update of what we're learning in the class. And also too, how can parents support, your child through this class, So hopefully you find this video helpful. So first off, again, we're in the middle of physics right now, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with how these kids are doing. We still have a ways to go in terms of, being at our best in terms of our work ethic and preparation, but we're progressing, as far as I'm concerned, at this point of the year, really well. I'm really pleased with how well many of these kids understand these concepts. And since we're in physics right now, it can be very intimidating, for kids, because the amount of math, and it looks all hard and complicated. But we keep trying to tell the kids, if you take the time and practice, the material, study it, rewrite the notes, which a lot of kids still need to work on, right? And we'll talk about that later. Physics is very doable, it can be fun, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, if you're being an 8th grader and you're looking at all these complicated resources through physics classroom and all these 6, 7-step math problems we're doing, these kids see, hey, even though these problems look really challenging and intimidating, based upon what I've studied and learned, this is very doable. So, a lot of kids are still doing really well, and a lot of kids are showing some growth in understanding material. So it's really been a fun year. I really have enjoyed this year a lot. It's really fun. So really pleased with how many of them are learning, and they're doing an outstanding job. It's excellent. I'm really excited to see how these kids do in the high school. I can't wait to keep tabs on their grades. All right, so that being said, we just finished up the Newton's Laws of Motion chapter. This current week, we're going to be spending time on something called momentum and impulse. It's a newer section that we've added in the physics, and again, it's a little bit complicated, but again, if they understood Newton's laws of motion, and they understand this third law of action-reaction, it really sets them up to understand momentum and impulse. And the reason why I've added this is because a lot of students have told me in the past, because I always ask them for feedback, because we want to make sure these kids are prepared and they're learning what they need to learn. They said in physics, if you could just do a little bit of momentum and impulse, it's a nice way to end Newton's laws of motion. So last year I kind of did it and gave a little small quiz at the end to see how it went, and it went really well. So now I'm able to implement it more formally this year. So it's funny, I did this momentum impulse thing at the end of physics last year, and I told my old students, hey, it went pretty well, but I did it at the end of physics, and I said as a teacher I felt like it would have gone better at the end of Newton's laws of motion. And the kids are in AP physics tell me, yeah, definitely do it after the third law, it really connects well. But they said it's good you're doing that, because it'll help give them that foundation for down the road when they go much more in depth. So that's really cool. So we're doing that this week, and there'll be a calculation test with Newton's laws combined with momentum and an exam next Friday. Then the next big chapter, which will start end of February into March already, will be circular motion in centripetal force. That's fun. We just started doing that a couple of years ago. Many of you that have been through this class before, you may have seen it before, although it is kind of newer. Again, if your child's really, taking inventory of their strengths and weaknesses with the material and realizing what they did well in chapter 1 and what they didn't do well with and are building on it, and then looking at their strengths and weaknesses in chapter 2, this complicated material of centripetal force, gravity, vertical circle calculations, horizontal circle calculations, which forces are acting on you at the top of the roller coaster, what's the net force, which is the net, I could go on and on. But when the kids really learn chapter 1 and 2 well, they can conquer chapter 3. And it's really neat to see the kids, progress as we do. And I'm excited to teach it. I'm going to be honest, a couple years ago I dreaded it because it was hard. But now after a couple years of doing it myself and seeing how the kids fare with it, it's really fun, and it just really makes a lot of sense. And it gives, if the kids work hard and take inventory and improve, it just instills a confidence that, hey, I can do this stuff. Hey, you know what, this stuff's hard, but it takes a lot of studying, but man, I feel pretty smart because I can do this. So it's kind of exciting. And then after that, we'll get into work energy, and then we'll have spring celebration week. And we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so that's what we're doing in class right now. All right, so, I've been teaching this class for, I don't know how many years now, 6, 7 years, and every year you learn new things. You grow as a teacher and you learn as a parent too. I mean, we're all parents, and as a parent, and I know you're parents, we all want what's best for our child. We all want to see our child succeed, and we all have these plans for our child and everything, and we all want to help as much as possible. I mean, that's our instinct, is to help, right? And, what I've been noticing is, with this, I've started this newer Google Classroom, way to post homework, and kids said they like that, and I use it, and I don't care where I post the homework as long as it's posted. I think that's great. But what I just realized, and I'm sure it wasn't a big deal before, but now I just realize it because I'm not the most technology savvy person in the world, and I'm proud to say that. I realized parents can only see what homework is posted if the kids show it to them. And in 8th grade, 7th grade, these kids, they want some independence. They want to do things their way. And as parents, it's hard to just let them do it their way, because we know what's best for our child. Sometimes they don't know what's best, and sometimes they do. So what I did last week was I took one email off each Skyward profile, I guess it's called, and I tried to invite each parent to have access to this Google Classroom website, because I think it's really important that the parents see, what kind of homework they have. They see what I post every night with the word. They see that, optional homework is assigned. They see, timelines. They see itineraries, so I'm really excited that you guys are able to see that now. And so what I hope is this, again, we all want what's best for our kids. I want what's best for my kids. You want what's best for your kids. I want what's best for your child. We're all in it together. So what I would recommend is this, and again, every child is different. The best thing I believe a parent can do for this class is, because a lot of parents ask me, how can I support? How can I help? Support them. Check the grades. Check the grades. Ask them about their grades, weekly. That's the first thing. Second thing I would do is look at their homework each night and just say, hey, how are you doing with this? Can I see your notebook? Can I see your rewritten notes? And if they can't provide you rewritten notes, which probably some of them can't, that might be something they want to start, because that's a really good active study technique. Mr. Parsley mentioned optional homework on there. Where's the optional homework at? How are you doing with it? Are you doing okay with it? Have you done it in the past? And I try to show some of that on the Skyward. And how has that choice that you made to do it or not do it affected your grade? And it's funny, listen to the conversation you're having. You're having conversations about self-discipline. You're starting to have conversations about study techniques. You're starting to have conversations about choices. And you're also trying to empower that child. Just say, hey, how have these choices worked for you? Let's take a look at the data. Let's look at the grades. So it's kind of nice to be able to have these conversations. You can also ask them and say, hey, let me see your packet. I see that he posts, you should be at this point by this night. Can I just take a look to see if you're there? And if you're there, hey, great job. If you're not there, well, you're going to need to get there. Or what's preventing you from getting there? So it's always best to be able to have good conversations with your child about how you can support them and about the choices they make, because they'll learn the science in this class. They'll have a good foundation. In a lot of these higher level science classes, there's going to be more science. They go more in depth in a lot of cases, and in some cases they don't. But in a lot of cases they do, but they'll have a good foundation leaving here. But what I hope is they have a good foundation of trying different strategies, being put in challenging situations and learning, forcing them to time manage, forcing them to stay committed to following an itinerary, forcing them to, hey, take that extra 5 minutes to do that online optional homework. So my thing is this, be there to support them. Because again, we want them to practice different strategies, right? Practice time management, because we do want to see success in this class. But more importantly, you having conversation with your child about self-discipline, time management, optional homework, right? Keeping up to date with your notes, rewriting notes. To me, these habits, and you having a conversation about that with your child and reinforcing it there, and maybe offering them some advice. And I know some kids don't want to listen to their parents for advice, I understand, because they know more than you do. That's what they think. But again, having conversations about that, I think, will instill discipline and habits for long-term success in the high school. You know, because that's the key thing here. We want your child to learn science here, but we want to also make sure they leave here with some practice at different types of study skills and different types of strategies that help them succeed. Because I always tell the kids, I said, hey, you got to rewrite your notes. In this class, it works, right? But I say, hey, you don't have to rewrite your notes in every class in high school. But there's going to be certain classes where, you know, it's going to be really hard. And the teacher, and this is what I hear from my former students. A lot of what I say and do is based on what former students tell me, right? And a lot of you parents, right? You're parents of those former students who give me advice. When I have these alumni days, you know I ask these kids, hey, what can I do better? Hey, what are you seeing up there? What can we tell these kids then? Excuse me. And they always say this, you know, rerunning notes doesn't work in every class, but certain classes it saved me. We'll practice it now, just in case you run into that class over there. Because there have been times where the teacher will mention something in passing for like 10 seconds in a class. And guess what? There's 5 questions about that in the exam 2 weeks later. And the kids are like, I'm glad I wrote that down on my notebook and rewrote it because I knew she was, or he or she was going to mention that on the test. So a lot of these strategies do help. So again, be there to support them. You know, if your child has a question about a physics problem or a chemistry problem or needs a little bit of help, is it okay to help once in a while? You know what? Sure. I think that's fine. But if you're finding that you're helping them every night and sitting with them for hours and forcing them to do their homework, that, you know, that might be helpful for now, but do you want to be sitting with them, doing their homework with them for hours in the high school? You know, is that doing them a favor down the road? You want to try to find that balance of being there to support them, talking with them about time management, study strategies. You know, how does this apply to this? You know, rather than constantly teaching or quizzing or whatever else. You know what I mean? So that would really be helpful. Another thing I would say is this. When your child studies, a lot of the kids say, you know, we study through the group chat or some, I don't know what it's called, right? Those wonderful cell phones, you know. I always tell students this, you know, the phone can be helpful. So, you know, you do need technology to do this class. My videos and also our physics classroom online resource in Quizlet. You know, I will tell you parents this. When your child studies, please have them use a laptop or something that they can use that cannot send them texts or any of these chats or anything else. Use a piece of technology that has minimal distraction, right? Have them study on their own, figure things out on their own. And if there's something they're not familiar with or something that's not clicking, then when they're done trying everything that night on their own, then they can use the phone and get on to the group chat and say, hey, I didn't understand this. Did you understand it? And then the kids can communicate back and forth, all right? Because in the end, you know, if the kid might get an answer or a clarification, you know, via phone while they're studying, they might not process it well. But if they try it on their own first, they have more ownership of it, I think conversation after the studying is over would be really helpful. And then some kids, you know, study in the car. Well, okay, you might need, I don't think you use a laptop in the car last time I checked, unless there's some technology I'm not aware of, but phone, if they want to do quizzing on the car, that's fine. And if they get a Snapchat or something, whatever, at least you're trying to study in the car. But focused, concentrated study is really good. And you know, as a parent, you want to pick your battles, I get it. It's not easy, it really isn't easy. I would recommend, you know, me the teacher, in this kind of class, which requires a lot of work and discipline and focus, minimize the phone during study. In fact, I would highly recommend they don't have it with them until they're done, okay? You know, once again, I hope these tips help. Again, we're seeing a lot of success this year. We're seeing a lot of success in the high school, and you know, it's really fun. So, one last thing I want to talk about, and this is something you want to talk about with your child, besides the study habits at home. Always assess your strengths and weaknesses, okay? When they get to the high school, when a test is usually an indicator of your strengths and weaknesses in a chapter for the most part. So here we spend the time for an entire period, going over the exam. Going over, well, these were the answers. And then they're given, and you've seen it now on Google where I give like the spring celebration week outline, and you see a T-chart of strengths and weaknesses. They bring them to class, and they're given time in class to write down, okay, what in this chapter was I strong with? What in this chapter was I weak with, right? And then they need to take those weaknesses and relearn them real quick to be able to succeed in the next chapter. Then they got to take those weaknesses and not only fix them for the next chapter, when they prepare for those comprehensive tests, which once again, try to mimic a midterm exam, they can go back and see what were my weaknesses in chapter 1. Oh, so when I review for my midterm final exams, I know what my weaknesses are. I can be more efficient at what I need to study. It's less daunting because I know what I got to spend more time on, what I got to spend less time on. So we spend that time in class doing that. Again, not only are we teaching science, we're trying to expose kids to different strategies that can help them handle these rigorous honors AP courses at the high school. Okay, so really reinforce, what are you learning? What have you learned well? What haven't you? And try to fix those weaknesses. Because when they go to the high school, many times the teacher gives back a test. Hey, here's 5 minutes. Take a look at it. And I was there once in high school. I would look at it. Okay, whatever. I got an A. All good. Or I get a C. Whatever. What I'm hoping is your child gets this self-discipline instilled where even though they just get the test back for 5 minutes, they're going to go on a piece of paper and write down on some T-chart, ooh, I got this right. I didn't do well on this. Rip it out, file it away for the next chapter or for their midterm and final. Okay? So please, continue to encourage your child. We're having so much fun. I really have enjoyed this year so far. We'll continue this marking period with physics. Next marking period, we go back to chemistry. If you log on to Skyward and you see your child's grade, I would recommend you do that. Okay? You'll see I tried my best to give you an outline of how many points we're going to give this marking period because of those all or nothing ion quizzes, which was mentioned last video. And also, too, we have a lot of tests. So the kids get practice at dealing with this situation where teachers give a lot of points in a marking period. So they see they can have a couple slip-ups and still be okay. I'm going to forewarn you now, and we're going to make a video about this at the end of the marking period. Fourth marking period, we're going to mimic something else. Because by the end of the third, they should have practiced all these study strategies. They should have self-discipline. Fourth marking period, we're only going to have about 300 points of tests, maybe 300 to 400 points of tests. 4 tests, 3 or 4 tests, that's it. No pop quizzes. No pop quizzes. No, a couple homework grades. And we're going to practice dealing in a marking period where there's less tests, and when the weather gets nicer, the kids may chill a little bit more. But I'm hoping they have that self-discipline to stay urgent, and they're going to see, how one bad test grade could decrease a grade, or how when there's less tests in a marking period, I need to stay self-disciplined and prepared to do well. Because when I do a lot of research on how kids do in high school, I not only look at their science grades, I look at math grades, I look at, Algebra 2, I look at calculus. And I see, teachers are great. They only have 2 or 3 tests in a marking period. And that's a big chunk of their grade. One bad test will have an impact. So we're going to practice that environment in fourth marking period. So we'll talk more about that with the next video. So once again, thank you so much for being supportive. This has been a really fun year. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I tried to get everybody on the Google whatever classroom thing. Okay, please check it out. Be there to support your child. We're all in this together, and that's that. I hope this video provides clarity to what we're doing in class. Again, I'll produce another one. Got a lot of good feedback from these videos. I'll produce another one probably for the fourth marking period. Any questions, shoot me an email. All right, thank you very much and have a good weekend. Bye.